Hello guys, I am Paul McWhorter from TopTechBoy.com and I'm bringing you Arduino lesson number 5 today. This is going to be a short lesson but an important lesson. In lesson number 5 we will be using the same circuit that we have used in the last couple of lessons. Specifically, that is this one here. You can see down in the lower left we already have it hooked up, but if you need to take a few minutes to get it hooked up, hopefully you already have it hooked up because we've been working with it for a while. But if you don't, you can pause here and hook it up. If you need help in hooking it up in lesson number 3, watch the video. I go through it step by step about how to get it hooked up. But hopefully you're getting comfortable with it at this point and that you can just kind of hook these things up yourself. We will be using this schematic for this exercise. And then also, hopefully in lesson number 3 and lesson number 4, you still have your code. If you don't have your code, I have it here. Go to TopTechBoy.com, go to lesson number 5, and you can get the code. If you want to get the code, you can get it right off of this posting. I've said this before and I've said this again. I really hope that you're not just going in and copying and pasting my code, because if you do that, you're going to be able to mirror image what I've done, but you're never going to be able to do anything on your own. I put it on here so that if you get stuck, you can come and look at it. You can see the way I did things. It can help you think about things, but you've got to get to the point that you're writing your own code, because you will never be a programmer if you're just sitting and copying and pasting other people's code. So I put it up here as a resource for you. I put it up here to help you if you get stuck. But I just really caution you that the guys that I've known that just have gone in and sort of hacked things up by copying and pasting other people's code, they never get to the point that they can do anything on their own. And so what your goal is not to just get through these lessons or to get through this class. Your goal is to become a programmer. And if you're going to be a programmer, you're going to need to do a lot of this stuff on your own. So just hope you'll think about that a little bit. But in case you're just jumping in here, you can get the code here on lesson number 5, and you can take that code and you can put it into your Arduino. And when you put it into your Arduino and download it, you should get something that you see like this down in the lower left, where the red LED blinks and then the yellow LED blinks. Let's just give a quick recap of this code. The last thing that we talked about was, let's see, we set everything up here. We declare our variables and assign our variables, and two of the key things are the number of times that the yellow LED blinks is set to 5. The number of times the red LED blinks is set to 5, and then we have 2 for loops. We loop through this for loop, blinking the red 5 times. We loop through this one 5 times to blink the yellow one 5 times. And so we've got 2 for loops. By changing these two numbers, we can change how many times these respectively blink. And by setting these various time parameters up here, we can control how long each one is on or off. So by playing around with this code up here, we can make these LEDs do whatever we want them to do. Okay, what we talked about in lesson 4 is that you get to the point, though, that you want to be able to interact with the outside world. So we do that over the serial port. In your void setup, you turn your serial port on with a serial begin. I've set the baud rate here to 115,200. If we look at the serial monitor by clicking here, you, with a little luck, and I need to maybe pop this up here, what you can see is the things that we are saying to print here are printing out on our serial monitor. Also, if you look, the serial monitor is in sync with the circuit over here. So it says blinking red as it's blinking red. It says blinking yellow as it's blinking yellow. So everything's kind of starting to work together live. And so that's sort of exciting. We're kind of getting a lot of things going a lot of different directions here. But one of the things I want to talk to you a little bit about here today is using strings. In our lessons up until this point, we've used a lot of variables, but we have always used variables of type int for integer, which means everything that we've done so far that's been a variable, we could handle with an integer. And an integer are basically the round numbers. It's like -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's the positive and the negative round numbers with also including 0. And because we're doing things like blinking a certain number of times, or we're talking about a certain pin, all of those things can be represented by round numbers. If you think I'm going to have a pin 9 or I'm going to have pin 10, but I would never have pin 9.5, so I can use integers. On the amount of time that I'm going to leave the LED on in milliseconds, 250. You know, we would, in milliseconds, we probably wouldn't want a fraction of a millisecond, so we can use integers there. Now, if we want the in-between numbers, or what you learned in math class as the real numbers, what we would do to get the in-between numbers or the real numbers, we would declare these things as floats. So once we start doing calculations, like let's say we're going to do a temperature sensor and we're going to measure temperature, and then we're going to put the temperature, that temperature reading in a variable that we called temperature, we probably want that to be a float, because you might want to know that it's 87.5 degrees as opposed to 87.3 degrees. And so when we start doing more precise calculations, we'll go to floats. But the reason for using ints, ints is integers, is that they take a lot less memory in the microcontroller. Now, when we're doing Windows machines and we're writing programs, you don't think about, you got just so much memory in your big machines. A lot of times you don't think that much about how much memory a float versus an int would use. But when we get down here to the Arduino, you can actually run out of memory on board an Arduino, and I've had several programs that have gotten complicated enough that I actually ran out of memory. And so when we're working on a microcontroller that's got a more limited amount of memory, we do want to be mindful about using ints versus using floats. But what I'm really going to talk to you today about in this video is it's not about floats, it's about a different type of variable called a string. And a string is really, it's a string of characters. Okay, so if I want to say the word hello, the word hello would be a string of characters, and so I would declare that as a string. And if you look, I sort of already started using strings this last program. It's just we didn't declare them a variable, we just plugged the string in. We didn't put the string in a variable, we just used the string directly. And so for instance, in this line here where we say serial.println, the red LED is blinking. The red LED is blinking. Those are inside quotes, the double quotes. And what that's telling Arduino is everything between those double quotes is a string, and it's saying, hey, print everything between the double quotes. And what's between the double quotes is the string. But what I want to show you is there's a different way to do that, that we can actually take that string and we can put it into a variable. What type of variable would we need? A string variable. If we're going to use a variable in Arduino, we need to declare the variable. Remember that if we do things up here, they are global variables, meaning anything we declare up here, everywhere in the program is going to know it. And so we're going to go ahead and make this a global variable. And so what type of variable should it be? It should be a string. And it makes me happy that it turns orange, which means I typed it in right because it recognized it. Sometimes it's kind of funny if you look at int, you declare an int with a lowercase I, but if I try to declare string with a lowercase s, it doesn't work. String needs to be a capital S. And that's why it's kind of nice in these integrated development environments like we are using here, and maybe a third time will be a charm, there it is to watch when something doesn't color, it's sort of a flag that it hasn't been recognized. And so you see string, so we're going to declare a variable, and the variable that I'm going to declare is red message. Okay, and red message is the variable. It's not a, it's a variable of type string. It's a variable now that I can assign a string to. And what do I want to assign to red message? Well, my red message was down here. The red LED is blinking. The red LED is blinking. Blinking. Okay, and we will close that. It turns blue, which means, hey, I recognize it. So that always gives us a little warm, fuzzy feeling when these things turn colors. It means that it's recognizing what we're doing. And then what we are doing is we are declaring a string variable. Okay, the variable is red message. That's like the bucket. The bucket is called red message. The message in the bucket is the red LED is blinking. So you've got to get your mind around the difference between the name of the variable, that's like the label that's on the can, and then the message in the can is the red LED is blinking. Now the cool thing about this is when we come down here, instead of printing the red LED is blinking, what we can print is just red message. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and run this and make sure I haven't made a mistake already. So making me feel good, seeing a lot of green, no orange. Ooh, sometimes it takes a second time to download this. I don't know. I might need a better serial cable. I've got a really long, stop that. I've got a really long serial cable, and it might be that it is just not working perfectly. So let's see here. Okay, I still did not like it that time. I'll try it one more time. Sometimes if you don't have a really good serial cable, it will kind of goof up a little bit. Okay, it took it that time. Now if we come and look at our serial monitor by clicking there, it says the red LED is blinking. You are on blink number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The yellow LED is blinking. Okay. Now what I want you to see, so that actually worked. Up here is where I told it red message is this string. And then down here, I just serial.println the variable name. And when you do a variable name, you don't put the quotes around it. Okay, you're saying print what's in the bucket called red message. Okay, you don't come in here and say print the string red message, because if we did that, what's going to happen? It's not going to be pretty. You see, you don't want to do that. It says red message. You just said print that exactly. You don't want to print the string red message. What you want to print is there is a bucket named, a variable named red message. What message is in that bucket? The red LED is blinking. So we don't put quotes around it. If you want to directly print a string, you put the quotes around it. If you want to print the variable that contains the string, you don't put quotes on it. And the reason I kind of go into this is that as I'm teaching students, it seems to be this is something that they stumble on. You stumble on for a little while, but once you kind of get familiar with it, it's really pretty easy. And so just think of the variable as a bucket, and the variable name is the label on the bucket, and then the string or the number or whatever it is what value you put you put in that bucket. So just like we said red message here, down here we should probably set this to yellow message. Okay, but if we're going to set this to yellow message, we've got to declare the variable. You can never use a variable without declaring it. So we come down here. What type is it going to be? It's going to be a string, and it's going to be yellow message. And so we just made a new bucket. That new bucket is labeled yellow message. And what message are we going to put in the yellow bucket? We're going to say the yellow LED is blinking. End. Close everything out. Don't forget the semicolon. Be a good boy and put a comment in. We are declaring a string variable. Okay, so now let's see. Now we come down here, and instead of printing the string directly, we're going to tell it to print the variable yellow message. Print the contents of that variable is what we're going to say. So let's, ooh, what did I do wrong? Guys, I am not, there is no in parentheses needed there. Okay. Sometimes I make mistakes on purpose just to see if you're paying attention. That one was just a good old-fashioned real mistake. So let's look here. Okay. So the red LED is blinking. That is red message. Red message is the red LED is blinking. Yellow LED is blinking. That's yellow message. Yellow message is set up here. And so that's just kind of neat. That's sort of a handy thing that you can not just have numbers or numerical values in variables, but you can also have strings and text. And there's also things that you can do, like let's come down here. I don't have to declare my variables up here. I'm going to make a local variable. I'm going to make a local variable, and I'm going to make it in my void setup, which means the only body that knows about this variable is going to be void setup. If I'm outside the void setup, it's not going to know about it. It's a local variable, local to void setup. But I'm going to make a string. I'm going to say string does not like it because I said sting. String is going to be equal to, I'm going to say hello, or I'm going to say welcome to, all right. Be good and put a comment. Declare string variable and assign a value. So I'm declaring the string. I forgot to put the name here. I'm going to say welcome message 1, WM1. We're going to declare the string variable, and the name of the bucket is WM1, and its content is welcome to. Remember, anything that I put out here after these slashes, it's just a comment. Arduino doesn't read it, but it's just for me and anybody that might be working with me to know a little bit more. It's like, what am I thinking? Why am I putting that line in there? Okay, now let's make another string, another variable. String welcome message 2 is going to be equal to, and I'm going to say my program. Okay, and then close that. And what did I forget up here? Why didn't you warn me? Why didn't somebody stop me and say put in your semicolon? Okay, and then I'm going to say / declare string variable WM2 and assign a value. Okay, so I've made two new string variables. The first one is labeled WM1, and that's welcome to. The second variable, the second bucket, is labeled WM2. What's inside that bucket? The words my program. Okay, and actually I need to do that after I turn on the serial monitor, so I'll put that. Sorry about that, but need to get that serial monitor on because I'm going to try to print something here. And then let's say that I'm now going to do a serial.print line, and I just say WM1. Okay, and then I'm going to close that, and let's see what happens when we do that. And this will just do it one time. It won't loop because it's in the void setup. It'll just print it one time. Okay, and now let's see what I have here. Welcome to. Right? Why didn't it print the rest of it? Because I didn't tell it to print the rest of it. I just said serial print line WM1. Okay, so if we want the rest of it, let's make it, and you'll see why I'm doing this in a minute. You'll see I'm kind of trying to show you some new stuff you can do, but it'll make sense in a minute why I'm doing it this way. Okay, serial.print line, and what's the next thing that I want? Well, I want WM2. WM2. That second string variable, I'm going to print that. Now let's download that. Okay. Now it says, welcome to my program. Well, it kind of printed the two things, but it's printing one on one line, the next on the next line. How could I get this all to print on one line? Do you remember that this print line says go to the next line? Well, on this first one, we want it to stay on that line, so we just want to do a print. And if I just do a print, now I can come over here and I can wait for it, and then it says, welcome to my program. Now what's wrong with this? Look at this, welcome to and my program, but I didn't put a space in there anywhere. I guess I could make a third variable, which was a space, and print that, or I could just add a space here. And now if I do that, it'll print that space as far as part of the first one. Let's see what happens. Okay. Welcome to my program. Okay, that's looking pretty good. That's looking pretty good. But I did it with two variables. Okay, I want to show you something that you can actually kind of almost do math, or it's called concatenation. What if I want to bring those two strings together, make a new string? So let's make a new string. My new string is going to be WM3. Okay, and then what's WM3 going to be equal to? In this, what I want to show you is I just declared the variable. I did not assign a value to it. You can just declare a variable without assigning anything to it. So I'm just going to say I declare a string variable WM3. That's just a placeholder saying later on I'm going to use a variable called WM3. It's a string. Don't panic. I've told you that I'm going to use it. Okay? I've told you I'm going to use it. So I've declared it. But you can't use it until you declare it. Now I'm going to come down here and now I'm going to assign a value to it. WM3 is equal to WM1 plus WM2. And what this is called concatenation. It puts the two strings together and it puts them in a new bucket called WM3, which I declared in the step above. And so let's come up here and say that we assign WM1 plus, or basically what we're doing is we are concatenating, and I'm not even going to try to spell that right, concatenating WM1 and WM2 into WM3. So I take WM2, WM1, WM2, put them together, and then put it in a new variable called WM3. And now what I am going to do here is I'm going to print WM3. And with a little luck, let's see what happens. Looks like it's going to compile. That is always good news. And then we look, and look at that. Welcome to my program. And it's, okay, I see what's happening. You see, I need to do a print line in this case because it didn't advance to the next line. I hadn't thought about this, but this one actually needs to be a print line so that I don't end up with that next print statement on the same thing. So if I do that and come down print line WM3, WM3 is WM1 concatenated with WM2, and so I've combined those two strings. And look at this. Welcome to my program. The red LED is blinking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The yellow LED is blinking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so you see, look at this. Now I'm starting to work kind of with strings of text as things I can plug together and move around. And then the user here, like the human being that's using this, it's sort of making sense that this thing that's printing is all synced up with what you see happening down here. While this yellow is blinking, it's talking about yellow. While the yellow is blinking, it's talking about yellow. When the red is blinking, it's talking about red. And we're sort of moving this text around. And if a person came in and was working with this, do you see it's kind of something that a human being could understand? Like maybe a normal human being isn't going to understand all of this, but just your general person off the street is going to understand this. It's telling me the red LED is blinking. It's telling me the yellow LED is blinking. Everything's sort of working together. And so one of the things that we have to do as a programmer is make our program work in the real world, make it work with real people who might not be programmers or might not be engineers. And so we've got to sort of wrap our code in stuff that's very usable and very intuitive for people to use. And right now we just start by trying to make our text well formatted and document our code and make things where it's sort of easy to understand what is going on. Okay, we've had a little bit of fun with strings. I appreciate you tuning in for lesson number 5. Please come back for lesson number 6. In lesson number 6, we're going to be seeing how do you get information. We've seen how to get information from the Arduino to the screen. How do we get information from the screen down into the Arduino? We want to start sending data the other way on the serial port, and that is a really, really important thing, and that's what we will be doing in lesson 6. Again, I'm Paul McWhorter from TopTechBoy.com. Please tune in to lesson number 6. See you guys later.